Well, welcome to the podcast, Driving the Cbus. I'm Scott McComb, your host here with Kaylin McComb, now Kaylin Bucklew.
That's right.
So Kaylin got married between broadcasts here. So congratulations,
Thank
Kaylin,
you.
on your fairy tale wedding.
Thank you so much. Perfect day. I'm an old married lady now, so I fight with my husband over what we're going to have for dinner and how we cancel our plans for the weekend.
Well, just so he knows, the secret to long-time marriage is knowing that when you come home, you're wrong. And then you're going to have a happy marriage.
Yeah.
So I think he understands that.
I think he does too. Yeah. We're off to a good start.
Good deal.
Yep.
Well, we'll wish Matt luck with his old broad, and I'm sure you guys will have a nice, happy life together. So
thank you.
Congratulations.
Looking forward to it.
We have a very special guest with us today, Mr. Cameron Mitchell, who's a friend of mine, as well as Central Ohio's most famous restaurateur, and becoming one of the most famous in America as he continues to expand all the different things that he does culinarily across the United States. So, Cameron, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you two today.
Wonderful. Thanks for coming. Also, he is the author of Yes is the Answer, What's the Question, which is an excellent book that talks about, your philosophies and kind of the foundations that you built your restaurant empire on.
Yes, and also includes a little bit about my dubious life prior to getting started in the restaurant business. But my journey, it just profiles my journey all the way to here, present today. So,
gotcha.
From being a young kid.
No, well, let's rewind just a little bit now. So you were here in Columbus, right, and went to Up Arlington High School. Yep. And
sort of,
right? So did you drop out of high school?
I did. My sophomore year, I dropped out and was a high school runaway and drop out. And I came back the night that my junior year was to start and kind of got caught back up. And kind of funny story, I eventually got elected senior class president, and I finished almost last in my class. I was 592 out of 597 and a 1.05 GPA. And I still got voted most likely to become president in the class superlatives and most absent. So those were my two famous class superlatives. So,
just imagine that in today's day and age. We have an absent president, and that could be real.
There you go. Well, and I couldn't even give the commencement address because I still had to go to summer school for some of my credits. So I really graduated after everybody else in summer school.
But look at you now. Do you have any regrets? I mean, my gosh.
None. The only regret I ever have is I only went to culinary school up in New York, the CIA, which is Culinary Institute of America. It's the Harvard of culinary schools, but I never went to college, and I have 3 kids now in college, but I always thought I would make a great fraternity guy. I never got to be in a fraternity, so that's my only regret in life, looking back. How it happened.
We can start like an old entrepreneurs fraternity.
There's still time.
There you go.
There's still time.
Well, we have one. It's called the Golf Club. It's out in out in New Albany. It's kind of a grown man's fraternity in a way.
So
we're a little bit more behaved.
Yeah, my son's a junior at University of Kentucky, and I'm going down for Dad's weekend.
There you
with
go.
His fraternity next weekend, so I can't wait. So
oh yeah, you're gonna have a blast there.
Give me a chance to go back in time.
Parents' weekend was always a blast. I remember when my parents would come down for Parents' weekend at The Ohio State University.
Ohio State.
I was an Alpha Phi.
That's right.
My wife was an Alpha Phi.
Ah, go Bears.
Yeah.
Love it.
You guys have a little thing there.
I know, yeah. See,
wow.
you're already in Greek life.
There you go.
It's fine.
Closer than you ever thought.
Right, I guess.
That's right. Well, so you go to culinary school, and then you come back to Columbus, and what happened then?
So I wrote out my goals. I had an epiphany. I was at 18. I was working for beer money, living at home with Mom, just out of school, and going nowhere in life. I was not a boy, not a man, and I was struggling. I didn't want to go off to college because I didn't know what I wanted to do. It wasn't that college was out of the question. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to waste my time. And I had an epiphany one day during shift change at Max Nerma's up on Kenny Road back then. Very busy restaurant. Would do 1,000 covers guests every Friday and Saturday. So, excuse me. So I got suspended there for being late too many times and the laziest guy in the kitchen. So I was suspended for 3 days, put on 30-day probation. And I was during that probationary period, I'd come back to work and I had this epiphany that, it was shift change on a Friday. I said, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. It was pandemonium in the kitchen. I just loved it. And I said, I love the energy. This is it. So I went home that night and I wrote out my goals. I said I was going to go to the Culinary Institute of America. I'd heard that. And I was going to become executive chef in 5 years by the time I was 23, then general manager at 24, regional manager at 26, vice president of operations at 30, and president of a restaurant company by the time I was 35. Not ever thinking about my own, just president of a restaurant company. And I woke my mom up at 1 a.m, showed her my goals. She was quite excited. I went back to work the next day, the hardest working guy in the kitchen, working for myself and my future in the best attitude, never really looked back. So fast forward, I got into the Culinary Institute and I graduated, came back here to Columbus at 22 years old. And there was a restaurant downtown called the 55 on the Boulevard, which is a top 10 white tablecloth restaurant in the city at the time. And they were opening a second restaurant up at Crosswoods. And I opened that restaurant as a sous chef, assistant chef, and I got promoted to executive chef of the downtown restaurant at 23, hit my first goal. At 24, I got promoted to general manager. We opened up subsequently 4 more restaurants. We grew to 6, and I got promoted to the operations manager of that group. We had my boss, who was the operating partner, and our corporate chef, and our CFO, and myself were in the front of the house operations. And that was went well, but my boss was a real micromanager, great guy, taught me a lot. But the company started to outgrow him, and the company was owned by some local wealthy business people, and it was a hip pocket business for them. They were building these restaurants as amenities to their developments and so forth, and they didn't care about us. And so I started to hit my head on the ceiling, realizing, my ultimate goal is to become president of a restaurant company. So I started to realize it wasn't going to be there. And so I was 28 years old. I went to Grandview Avenue, Spazio, one night on a Friday night, and about 9 o'clock to meet a friend. The place was busy, and Chef Hubert, who owned it, comes out of the kitchen with a glass of Chardonnay and skibitzing with the guests in the dining room. And I watched him for a few minutes, and I had another epiphany, clear as a bell. This is May of 1992 that I'm going to start my own company. And so I left July 11th of 1992 to pursue launching it, birthing a company. It wasn't ever about just opening a restaurant. That was never my goal. And because I want to be president of a restaurant company. And so I spent the first 30 days in my 1-bedroom apartment up at the Continent back then with poster boards all over the walls, taped up, legal pads, wadded up piece of paper, books, magazines. And I was reading, writing, rewriting, the company culture and values and what kind of restaurant company I wanted to be and wanted to create. So, and that lasted about 30 days. And then I set about the course. So now here we are, August of 92. And I set about the course of building a company wrapped around that culture and values, and still doing that today. Next August of 22 will be my 30th anniversary doing that. And
that's awesome.
And so it took 14 months to open the first restaurant. We opened up October 5th of 1993, Cameron's of Worthington. And next year we have Valentina's, which we announced, Northern Italian cuisine restaurant opening up in Bridge Park in Dublin. And we have a new Pearl opening up in Tampa, Florida. And whichever one of those opens first, we're not sure which one yet, will be our 100th restaurant we've opened since I started. So that'll be kind of
amazing.
A fun celebration. And we'll end up, we've closed 14 over the 30-year period, which is, that's fine. We sold 22 of them to Ruth Chris Steakhouse in 2008. So we'll have 64 restaurants here once we cross over that 100 mark here in the next few months. So
I kind of want to stop you on one of those points. I know you said you closed about 14 restaurants over the lifespan. I think the restaurant industry kind of has a stigma that it's a hard industry. It's definitely, especially to be successful at for a long period of time. What is that like? I mean, tell me about some of those hard times throughout your experience of where you either had to make the hard decision, whether it be to close or to stay open. I mean, tell me about that. That has to be scary.
We don't have enough time on this podcast to talk about all those. But, listen, I tell people every single restaurant we open will close at some point in time, whether it's, 10 years, 1 year, 50 years, lots of restaurants in the city. Lindy's, for example, down in German Village has been there 40-some years. I mean, we could open up Harvey and Ed's in the short north, and it was open a little over a year. So, it's really a matter of walking from the dugout to the home plate and keep swinging. And we know we're going to strike out every once in a while, but we also know we're going to hit some grand slams every once in a while. So it all adds up together to, 5 good restaurants. And I always say, if I open up 5 restaurants, one's going to be a dog, 3 are going to be what I call singles, doubles, or triples, to use the baseball analogy, and one's going to be a home run. And at 14 out of 100, that's about an 86% batting average. And,
how do you know when to swing?
You just, while you do your homework, get better at the craft. We're certainly better at our craft at picking, we've done some bad sites over the years, locations. We've talked ourselves into some projects when we shouldn't have. And, but we're better at our craft. And our part of our culture is to be better today than we were yesterday and better tomorrow than we are today. And so, our success ratio, if you will, is better today than it was in the beginning. But all in all, we know you can't be perfect. Michael Jordan didn't make all of his shots. It just happens. And but I always tell people I may shoot myself in the foot every once in a while, but I'll never shoot myself in the head. So, I may walk around with a limp, here or there, but we'll recover. And we have. I've made some big real estate mistakes in the past, and we're just not going to do that again, I don't think.
Well, that's how you learn, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean, by stepping on your own foot, that's how you learn how to walk straight.
Paid a lot of money for this education.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. The School of Hard Knocks is really where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
Cameron, you talk, I know, in your book about you spend a lot of time talking about the lessons that you've learned, and one of the bigger things that you shine on there is taking care of your people, and the fact that, that customer experience is delivered by your associates, and if your associates aren't, if they're not focused and all that, then that's not gonna end well with the visit. So tell me about that, about how you surrounded yourself with a quality team and what you do on an ongoing basis to make sure that you got quality people.
Yeah, well, I'm a desk jockey these days, so I'm not out there delivering the experience our people are, and but that has been a pillar of our culture since day one. My mom really didn't know anything about business, but she saw Dave Thomas speak from Wendy's once, and Dave said, one of his keys to success was surround yourself with great people. And so I've always believed that. And, our guest service is a hallmark, great guest service of our company. But, I really look at it as it's the guest doesn't come first. I look at it as our people come first. We have a direct relationship with the people. I'm brazen enough to even say we don't have a direct relationship with our guests, so we take care of our people. Then I look at it as a triangular relationship. We take care of our people then take care of our guests, and our guests take care of our company by coming back time and time again. And so at the end of the day, ultimately, we define ourselves as great people delivering genuine hospitality, and we deliver great guest service in our restaurants because our associates are happy. They care for the company. The company cares about them. And we have a great relationship with our people, and that shows in the service they deliver and the success of our company. It's always people first.
I think. Well, that's wonderful. And now with since we're still kind of on the tail end, hopefully, of the pandemic, that was a big shock, right? Probably one of the biggest things you ever had to deal with in your business. Same thing for me. Yeah. But tell me about how you fared with your folks, and then. And then, from what I can tell, most all your folks are back, and so that's maybe an advantage you have with some of the competition, right? Because you're able to provide meals and service and such.
Yeah, labor workforce is the biggest issue. One of the biggest issues facing the business today, and we always pride ourselves. We have very low turnover in our associate ranks and our hourly and management ranks, but we lost a lot of people. We furloughed 4,500 people in 1 week with the start of the pandemic, and I took a lot of heat for that in the beginning, but we had no choice. Our sales got cut off. We got shut down, A, and B, I wanted to get our people at the front of the line as soon as possible for unemployment and get them taken care of. And we raised some money we raised about $750,000 for our associate relief fund. We sold a bunch of gift certificates, and we put all that money towards that fund. But through the pandemic, the key for us was just open, honest, transparent leadership. Always said I've always had that, but it wasn't. During the pandemic, that's when you lean on your culture and values the hardest, the most, not throw it out the window. And I don't know, as we all did, hundreds of Zoom calls with different sets of people and organization, and I was sharing with them all the way through our plan and what we had in the bank. And once we got the PPP money, that first tranche, that was really, I really kind of felt we were going to survive at that point because that gave us enough to be able to get reopened and get moving. But and none of us thought the pandemic was going to last this long. And clearly, it was the most difficult year I've ever had in my years of leadership in the restaurant business. And this year, I say, is tied for second with 2009 with the Great Recession. And this year has been a very difficult year also. So we lost a lot of people, but we get a lot of people back, and we're hiring a lot of new people in the organization. So, we're very careful today to make sure we're train some more and teach our culture and philosophy and values, because we've got a lot of new people. So that, it's easy to slip back on that, and we're constantly measuring, our performance out there in our guest reviews and making sure we're not slipping back as we're going through this transition with people. But it's been very challenging. COVID's still with us. We're still having, people out with COVID and people out with, quarantines and short labor. You're short-staffed. It gets difficult. And we had, in the beginning, obviously, everybody know we had government restrictions everywhere across the country, and capacity restrictions and so forth. Those all got lifted, and then we instituted our own capacity restrictions because we only had enough. We couldn't take care of everybody we needed, and we still to this day have some restaurants we can't open at full capacity. A perfect example of that is we just opened El Segundo in the Short North 4 weeks ago, and our plan there was to be open 7 nights a week and Saturday and Sunday brunch, and we were faced with a choice: either not open because we couldn't hire enough people, or open Tuesday through Sunday dinner 6 nights a week, and we'll open Monday night later and Saturday and Sunday brunch later, and that's what we chose to do. So there's examples of that all throughout the company, how we're under some sort of self-imposed restriction because of the shortage of staff. And it's getting better now, as I suspected it would after all the stimulus ran out in the first part of September, and school came back in session and so forth. So we're getting a little better, but it's still, even today, it's still the worst labor environment I've ever worked in.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I know that you were on CNBC and a number of shows, talking about the situation during the heat of the pandemic and when things were completely shut down, and so I know that you were a big leader for the restaurant industry, trying to label that plight and all the different fights that you had. But you're right. I mean, that most of the folks in the labor pool in the restaurant industry is on the shorter end of things, right? And so keeping those people, coming back, and when the government enticement is so much, compared to what it normally is, that keep some people on the sidelines.
Yeah.
One of the things also that I wanted to thank you, I know you're a very benevolent person as well, and you like to invest in young people. I introduced you to a gentleman named Mitchell Titus, and you just made his day. Mitchell has read your book 2 or 3 times. He was in the Culinary Institute and Southwestern City Schools. A real workaholic, plays the cello, all kinds of different things, real gifted guy. He came in, so I asked Cameron, hey, would you mind meeting this guy? So Cameron not only just didn't tell me this, but he just went ahead and did it. That's the kind of guy you are. He invited him into his office. They sat there and they had a great discussion and lunch. And then at the end of the thing, he offered him a job to work at Martini's. So
that's awesome.
Mitchell Titus is now working at Martini's. Mitchell Titus is bought a new car, and he just out of high school bought a new car, and now he's building his own house.
Wow. Wow.
And this is one of your...
I think he's going to end up okay.
I think he's going to do just fine.
That brings up a really good point, Cameron, that you actually mentioned earlier, and it was about how, during the time where probably a lot of other people your age were going off to college, you didn't, and it was because you didn't really know what you wanted to do. And I think that there's a lot of people nowadays that kind of have this mindset of, that's just what you do after high school. So you go to college and you get a degree, even if you don't know what that's. I mean, Dad, you kind of did that. You went to college and majored in High Street until they almost kicked you out for not picking a major.
But Kaylin, now that's a very educational environment, High Street. You learn to love, you learn to fight, you learn to budget.
Absolutely.
All those things.
I'm not saying it was wrong. I'm just saying it was happening.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to that because there are so many opportunities out there for young people to learn and get experience without having to, pay out the wazoo for a 4-year degree. Sure. What would you say to people in that situation?
Have the debt. And have the debt.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, hard work, as Scott was just saying, the School of Hard Knocks teaches you a lot.
Totally.
But I advocate in, that we built Mitchell Hall at Columbus State, new culinary school over there to help young people along the way, because there's a lot of what we call the non-traditional path that people want to take. We're trying to create a program right now, which I think is going to be super cool. We have I've been introduced to a guy who's working with foster kids who at 18,
Wow.
they graduated out of that system and they're on their own. And so we're trying to put a program together where we'll take these foster kids and talk to them, teach them about the restaurant industry, and then if they work for us, then we'll pay for their school at Columbus State.
That's
and hopefully
amazing.
turn some lives around there and give these young people some stability and
Sure.
a family atmosphere that they can grow in. And the restaurant business saved my life, and I'll never forget it. Always be
Yeah.
grateful to the industry. It's just like Mitch. I do it all the time with young people. I was a student at one point in time, and and trying to help young people along and find their path and their passion. And what I tell my kids, I don't care really what you do. I just want you to find your passion. If you can find your passion, whether it be being a teacher, firefighter, a cook in a restaurant, whatever it is, you're gonna do well. And my passion happened to be the restaurant business. I've told my wife now for 27 years I'm going to work, but I haven't really gone to work in 27 years. It's because I love what I do. And if you
Right.
could find that, then great. So the more people I can help turn on to the industry, this fabulous industry, the better. And that's why I do it. I don't ever forget that, I was a student. I started as a dishwasher at $2.65 an hour, 41 years ago. And it is what it is. So we got to pay it forward. It's part of our responsibility.
If somebody wants to get into the restaurant industry but isn't quite sure if they're ready to dive into culinary school, where do they start?
Well, they usually will start getting a job. Excuse me. We've done what we call stages too, where we can, we have people come into the restaurants and in the kitchen and just work for a day or two, just to even get a snapshot of something if they like it. But generally, people will start, light prep in the kitchen and kind of figuring out if it's something for them, and we'll see if it happens. It's not obviously for everybody, but the people that do get the bug, and our company is just a beautiful example of that. We have we have almost 5,000 employees today, associates, and I tell people, all you got to is look to your right, look to your left, and you'll see a success story. People started with 30,000 or $10-12 an hour are now making well over six figures and building their careers. We've had hundreds of CMR, Cameron Mitchell Restaurant marriages in the company, hundreds more CMR babies, and it's just you look at our executive team. They almost all started in the hourly ranks, or our senior VP of Human Resources started as a server at Molly Woo's 20 years ago while she was going to school at Ohio State. And, you got those success stories everywhere, and it's just great. And so when I preach to young managers today within the company and associates at these presidents' roundtables I talk to them all, our new opening, about the opportunity. In fact, we show a video at every new orientation for new staff for a new opening about the restaurant industry and the opportunities and so forth. So
I think
been
that's
great.
I think that's so important, because I also think there's a lot of stigma. We talked earlier about the stigma about the restaurant industry as a whole, but I think that there's also a stigma when it comes to working in the restaurant industry. There's a lot of people who look at, oh, you're a server, and it's okay. Well, there are some servers in New York that make up pretty damn good money. So be
big
careful.
money. Yeah.
Be careful before you.
This is the deal. Not only are they served, but during the day, they usually own real estate and have their own real estate portfolio
Totally.
and all kinds
Totally.
of stuff. So it's, the gig economy now allows for that. So people can go and they can bring $300, $400 in a night. Okay.
Yeah.
And also get to associate with folks that can help their day job, which might be, again, owning real estate, doing podcasts. Who knows what they
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
Now you do develop. So you've got the Columbus State experience, right? But you also have a new concept that opened not too long ago, where you are grooming younger chefs to have a smaller environment, and they work in a collaboration type a piece called Bud Dairy. Maybe tell us a little bit about Bud Dairy.
Yeah, Bud Dairy is part business opportunity and part social enterprise. And the idea was, if we could take these young and some of it that a couple of people had a food truck, a couple people have one restaurant or two, but a couple people have had no experience at all. And Daisy at Modern Southern Table is a classic example of that. She'd never had a food truck or anything, but she was a great Southern cook, and she's a smart gal. She got her MBA. She worked for J.P. Morgan, but she wanted to make that leap, and she went to the tryouts, and her food was awesome. And so But the idea is we can take someone for 50 grand or to 100, maybe if they really want to go big, to open their space up in Bud Dairy, and they can easily make then hopefully a 6-figure income from that, starting with that. And that's already proven the case. People have almost got their money back, if not gotten their money back, since they started with us.
Wow.
And so, and then hopefully if, one of them, we try to coach and help all along and help them with their craft, maybe refine their food, whatever the case may be. And hopefully one of these days, just like Jenny's Ice Cream came out of the North Market, Joe Hot Chicken Takeover came out of the North Market, that we might have one or two of them go to bricks and mortar. I also started a young leadership group. I have 7 young restaurateurs in this group. We meet every other month, break bread together from 4 to 9, and share a libation. And all these guys are in their 30s and have, 2, 3, 4 restaurants, and I wanted to help them avoid some of the pitfalls that I made in the early days, and so we have a great time. They love being together, and I always learn a lot. You can learn from anybody, and it's just great to be with these young people and helping them grow too. So it's just
young people are the greatest.
Yeah, every chance we can. I believe in pushing it out there. Providence, everything I can do to push out in our community. I know ultimately, I don't do it to be self-serving, but ultimately we grow and we get better, and it helps everybody. So
that's wonderful. That's one, and it's kind of the Columbus way, though, too. I mean, I don't know anybody in Columbus. I mean, there's a few outliers, but most people in Columbus are willing to collaborate with one another. We have a very conducive environment here, and a matter of fact, I was with Christine Nome, the governor of South Dakota, last evening, and she said, I went out for a run, and I couldn't believe that everybody I went by was waving and saying good morning and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
She said, this is a really friendly place,
Yeah.
and it's true, and it's very collaborative as well.
Absolutely.
And, so people understand that if not, everybody makes it, then everybody's successful. So
yeah, I mean, you think about it, the state. Local governments, you don't have city council fighting with the mayor, with the county commissioners. We have Ohio State University is very collaborative. The business community, all of our business leaders out there, the Columbus Partnership, I'm on that. We have 75 CEOs on that. And our only one goal is to help Columbus grow and help all boats rise in Columbus. And there's not one self-serving goal on there. It's just it's community involvement. And, Harvard has done a case study on Columbus called the Columbus Way, and they teach it to other cities and governments around the world, and people that send and come learn about Columbus and how we do things here. So it's we're very, very fortunate to live in such a great city.
That's wonderful. Well, I think we're going to enter our speed round now. And
I was going to say,
Kim's got some questions for you from around the country.
I hate to be the bull in the china shop, but we're agreeing a little too much right now, and it's making me uncomfortable. So we're going to get a little controversial.
Okay, because we have to have some of that.
We do. That's why I'm here, right? So I have in front of me the 10 most controversial restaurant policies.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm just going to kind of read them out. If you want to, you don't have to tell us what your policy is. I'm just looking for some thoughts and opinions here on maybe why these policies exist. Do we like them? Do we not like them? Dad, feel free to chime in too with all of your years of restaurant expertise. Number one.
Just look at my belly. Look at my waistline.
Number one would be no kids allowed.
Yeah, I don't know any restaurant in today's world that does that.
I don't either, actually. So. I mean, I know bars, but I mean.
Yeah. If I'm really hungover, I'd love to have that policy, but,
Yeah.
All right. Well, next is number 2, no substitutions on the menu.
Yeah, I obviously don't believe in that. I wrote a book called Yes is the Answer, What's the Question? So we're happy to make substitutions.
Well, in your opinion, why would somebody even have that policy? Is that like a supply thing or
arrogance? It is difficult. It creates more of a challenge, right? But I always say great restaurateuring is difficult. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Or you have these arrogant chefs that say, "Oh, that dish is supposed to have mushrooms on it. It changes the flavor profile if you take mushrooms out." And who cares? I'm ordering food. Let me be the judge.
But the mushrooms.
Yeah.
Well, it also it could have to do with the skill level of the people providing the food. So if they don't have a lot of talent back there, throwing them curveballs is just going to do nothing but back up the line. So
that's fair.
But it happens. But it's like within reason, I guess. If we're packed and busy on a Saturday night, someone wants an orange souffle. We may not be able to do that, but that's okay. But that's
so I would like to substitute my mashed potatoes for a fillet. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
That'd just be a slight upcharge.
Yeah. Number 3, auto gratuities for large groups.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's actually illegal to do that
Really?
in the federal government, and we
Consumer alert, people.
Never knew that.
yeah, with the IRS, but so we have always declined to do that. We suggest a gratuity to a large party, but ultimately it happens, and it's just the downside of being a server in a restaurant business. You might get a large party of 12, or and then they go separate checks, and then they don't want to tip very well, or they only tip 10% or whatever. And you do all that work, and you really get a very low tip out of it. But for me, the way I look at it, that's just the cost of doing business, and it's just the way it is. You also have tables where you make a fortune. I was in a restaurant the other night. The bill was so cheap; it was $60, and I love this lady. She's been there 35 years. And so I tipped her $60 on, so you're going to have that, I want to make her day, So it's going to roll with the punches, in my opinion.
Okay, fair enough. Number 4, no reservations.
Yeah. Reservations are hard, again, and that usually goes down the line with the level of service and the price point, people are going to Ocean Prime or Ocean Club here. They want a reservation. They want to know they can get a table. They're coming to spend a lot of money and so forth. But if they're going to Cap City, or Rusty Bucket, then we don't really need to make reservations for them. But we do call-in reservations where you can call and put your name to the list, or you can actually make a reservation for a party of 8 or more if you want. So it just helps the guests and helps the restaurants. But restaurants that actually say no reservations at all usually are packed to the gills.
Yeah.
And they're just taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
How has Open Table helped that? Has it helped it or hurt it, or using technology to make those reservations?
Yeah, that's a whole other topic we can talk about for hours, is the encroachment of technology in the restaurant business. We spend $800,000 a year on Open Table. It's very expensive, and you really can't be without it now, So that's an added expense to our company that we never had, 10, 15 years ago. However, it does provide some benefits. We benchmark ourselves. Open Table, you get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-star review, and our goal is to have 95% 4 and 5-star reviews. So we can track those, and we can also benchmark ourselves against our competition. Or an example, if I'm going to a new location and trying to determine if we want to build a restaurant here or not, we can look at our competitors in Open Table and see how many reviews they have, and we can compare that to how many reviews we have. The reviews are usually indicative of their sales volume. So there's other tools we use it. We use it for training when we get negative comments, all sorts of things. So it's good, but it's also very expensive.
Yeah. Number 5 kind of goes along with number 4 with reservations. Needing a credit card to hold the reservation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something we've started to do, particularly during the pandemic, and that'll be a policy that'll stay with us because, you get right now there's so much demand out there. We lost about 15% of the restaurants during COVID. People were dying to get back out in restaurants, so we're running at full capacity. And you make a reservation for 12 or 20 people in the restaurant. They're just for larger parties, and they no-show on you. It gets very expensive, so we really can't afford to do that. So we're taking the deposits we don't ever want to take have them cancel and collect the deposit.
Sure. It's not to gouge.
Serve right.
Right.
It's
not to gouge the
it's just
customer.
to add a little incentive to call us if you want to cancel.
Right.
Then versus just no show.
And when you think about, the hair salon that I go to, you have to cancel within 24 hours of the appointment. If you don't, there's a $30 charge for that.
Those people are losing money.
Absolutely.
I get it. So.
Number 6, I'm just, before I even read it, I'm going to say I've never even heard of this in a restaurant. No cell phones or cameras.
Yeah, that's happened to us a couple of times.
Really?
We travel the country researching restaurants and looking at restaurants all the time, and occasionally we'll get in a restaurant where we're taking pictures of the menu or taking a picture of a plate or of an environment, and every once in a while someone will get short with you and say, hey, no cell phones in here, no pictures. And I think it's ridiculous. I'll share anything,
Yeah.
And,
I could maybe see it if, let's say there's a celebrity that's dining and it's just for privacy, but
it's kind of weird.
Not a fan.
Very little, in my experience, all my experience, I've seen that, a handful of times.
We ought to be reporting those people to the BSA folks because they're probably laundering money through those restaurants. And that's why they don't want to have any cell phones or pictures.
Yeah, well, how are the influencers supposed to review the creme brulee if you can't take a picture of it?
That's right. Vinny, no pictures.
All right, number 7. This is actually something that we encountered during COVID, and I was not a fan. Dining time limits.
Mm-hmm. Yep, same thing. You come in there, we're a busy restaurant, and we're trying to recover from COVID. Our costs, our food costs are through the roof. Everybody knows that right now, and we lost, a tremendous amount of money last year. And so now if you've got all this demand and you get a table that comes in there and spends hardly anything and wants to stay for 3 or 4 hours and you miss another turn, that hurts the restaurant. So we've started to kind of monitor that and sometimes we would never tell someone, hey, you need to go. Mm-hmm. It's your time's up. But we might say that in certain conditions at the beginning, before when we make the reservation, hey, it's a 2-hour time slot.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Number 8, restaurant dress codes, meaning for the customers, not necessarily the staff.
That's the most sticky wicket that you're just talking about right here. We have... particularly in our urban settings, and young people today are dressing, a little more,
casual,
or in the urban settings, whatever, ball caps on, whatever the case may be, just, sports jerseys,
right.
Whatever. And, it's tough, you're in a fine dining restaurant to, allow those people in. You want to, here's a perfect example. If you said no ball caps, for example, and now, you have a woman or a guy comes in and has cancer and, is, balding or whatever, wants to wear a cap. Excuse me. What are you going to say? It's okay for them, but it's not okay for someone else.
Sure.
And so, it's really difficult to, monitor. And I'll throw another one in there, that we've had to eliminate from our restaurants. And it's very challenging also, with the advent and the growth in marijuana usage in across the country. We get people who will sit in their cars and hot box, a joint or something, and just reek like marijuana when they come in the front door, and that's really offensive to guests.
Sure.
And so we've had to tell some people like that, and it's hard. I mean, you're a host at the front door, and you say, "Listen, I'm sorry, you smell."
Yeah, how do you handle that conversation? I'm sure it's not an easy one, and I'm sure they probably don't respond very well. Although if they are hotboxing, they probably are just like, "Oh crap, they know," and then run.
And it's like
what's hotboxing?
Sitting there in a closed car.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, but and why we're on this subject, it's not, you read about it all the time in the airlines, right? Hostile flyers and interactions and assaulting of flight attendants and so forth. We currently today are spending about $600,000 a year for security in our downtown urban restaurants, because we have some very unruly guests in our restaurants. And that's just, you just didn't have that years ago.
You'll have that everywhere. I mean, we have that in banking.
Yeah. But anyways, so got to do what we got to do.
Number 9, no standing at the bar. Okay, let's talk about this pre-COVID and post-COVID, because obviously with COVID, there are new rules in place. Mm-hmm. So pre-COVID and post-COVID.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we love people standing at the bar. That's what we want. Right? We want packed
the more people, the better, right?
Yeah, we want the buzz, everything else. So, yeah, that was a COVID deal that's kind of coming. It's on its way out right now. I mean, it'll go away. I'm not worried about that one. Okay.
And then last but not least, cash only.
Those are a few old-time restaurants that do that. The one in Dayton, the Pine Club, it's a cash-only restaurant. Mm-hmm. Listen, credit cards run about 3% of our sales. We pay the credit card fees. So, if we were cash only, we'd be 3% more profitable. I'd love to be cash only, but it's just not realistic.
In today's world, no. I don't think it's realistic.
Yeah, especially young people today don't carry cash.
I don't.
Well, I mean, let's face it, you don't have to count the cash. You don't have to worry about the cash walking off. The transaction takes less because you don't have to make change. Yeah. You don't have to run to the bank to deposit the cash. As the banker, I would defend the credit card companies.
Well,
Just saying.
Yeah, I hear you.
No, absolutely.
Now, how are they supposed to go through, through a McDonald's drive-thru the other day, and for an Egg McMuffin, and they're pumping cars through there just right and left. They now have the credit card machine on the outside of the window, and you just go through and tap your card
or scan your phone. Boom.
Well, and to the
to
the contrary, there's a lot of places that only accept credit cards. They won't accept cash anymore.
Right. That's where it's heading more that way.
Yeah.
So.
And I'd be interested to know, while we're on the topic and we're sitting with two bankers, is how has that evolution been for you guys? Now, I know, like, with new fintech and everything like that, I mean, there's a million different ways you can accept credit cards, and some of them are more high tech than others. Obviously, I am in banking now, and I went to Canada actually 2 years ago in 2019, and it was the first time I'd actually seen restaurants and servers with handheld credit card machines that they were kind of taking around place to place. That's becoming more common. Tell me about what that's been like for you.
With the digital chip readers and so forth. So we have probably $250,000 a year worth of fraudulent credit card chargebacks that we have. And, because of our back of the house technology and our register systems, it's not completely developed the technology yet, but we now have chip readers in all of they're not the portable ones, but they are there. So now we've cut our chargebacks down by half, once we've installed these chip readers in restaurants. So in the Ocean Primes, we don't have them everywhere, but, fraud is a big thing too. We got to continue to fight all the time.
Absolutely.
But it's coming. All that technology is moving that direction.
I'll tell you what an interesting 10 questions, though. I mean, those are all things that are happening, in the restaurant industry as it continues to evolve real time. That's right. Well, Cameron, I really enjoyed you being here today, and obviously congratulations on 30 years of being in business here in Central Ohio and transforming the food scene, not only here in Central Ohio but in America, and also on your 100th restaurant that you're getting ready to open. And
so exciting.
And yeah, it is super exciting. I'm sure we're going to see more and more. So I want to thank you for being on the podcast today and driving the bus.
Well, my pleasure. It's a pleasure to be with both of you today. Anytime.